Hey, if you're a D2C or omnichannel brand and you're based in New York City, or if you just want to travel to New York, I've got a special invitation for you. OMG Commerce and Raindrop plus Google are hosting an exclusive invite-only event at the Google offices in Manhattan at the St. John's Terminal. This is an epic Google office, but the content is going to be even better. My buddy Jacques Spitzer and I from Raindrop are going to be showing you how to scale your brand using YouTube. But there'll also be some very special guests there, including Dara Denny, Ezra Firestone, Nick Sharma, plus some executives from YouTube. Here's the deal. This event is free, but space is extremely limited, and you do have to apply and be approved to attend. And OMG Commerce and Raindrop clients do get first dibs. But if you'd like to know more, visit omgcommerce.com/NYC event. Again, that's omgcommerce.com/NYC event. Click there to get all the details to apply. And I can't wait to see you in New York City and help you dominate with YouTube ads. Well, hello, and welcome to another edition of the E-Commerce Evolution Podcast. I'm your host, Brett Curry, CEO of OMG Commerce. And today we are talking about optimizing your supply chain outside of China. How do we think about tariffs? How do we think about supply chain optimization? And what opportunities are there for us outside of China? Obviously, it's very timely, and this is a topic where the game is changing on the field daily, hourly, all of those things. So we'll try to keep the conversation pretty high level and also make this useful regardless of what the tariff news is when you decide to hit play on this. But my guest today is Jim Kennemer, and Jim is the founder, managing partner of Cosmo Sourcing. I met Jim at Seller Summit in Fort Lauderdale last week, I guess it was, at Steve Chu's event, Steve and Tony, running a great event down there, one of my favorites. And so Jim was a speaker, I was a speaker, and he talked about tariffs. And I was like, man, I got to get you on the pod because everybody's freaking out about this, or at least wondering about this. And so with that, Jim, welcome to the show, man. And how's it going?
Hey, it's great to be here and doing great. Yeah. Thanks for having me here.
It's been a whirlwind for you. You picked the right time to specialize in sourcing outside of China.
I picked like 10 years
kudos
ago,
to you. You saw the future years ago when you mapped that out, and you've had quite the couple of weeks, man. You were on stage before Lauderdale. You got quoted in the Wall Street Journal about this topic, and so tell us a little bit about that. How did you end up getting mentioned in the Wall Street Journal?
Yeah, Hannah reached out to me. Hannah Mao, she's a reporter for Wall Street Journal, and she's obviously covers tariffs, supply chain, manufacturing, and Vietnam. So yeah, reached out. She's doing a 6-part story actually about manufacturing in Vietnam, the whole on the ground and whatnot. But yeah, we helped for the first story. She visited a couple of factories that we put her in touch with, and she interviewed the factories and featured one of them pretty prominently in their story. And then that's the one I was featured in was the second of 6, I believe.
Nice.
It keeps changing with the news. So
keeps changing. We were just talking about some kind of a casual comment the president made recently that who knows what that's going to do to the markets. But I think we're just all our tolerance level for chaos is just going to be pretty high here for the foreseeable future.
Got to be adaptable right now.
Yeah, you got to be adaptable. And so I think there's a few things we're looking at here. I just recorded a podcast with Andrew Ferris, who's just a legend in terms of marketing and media buying and e-com in general. And he and I were both talking about, hey, in times like this, times of uncertainty, there are always opportunities to grow and
100%.
improve and actually to get better than you were before. And I think one of the things, and this is something that Andrew mentioned, one of the potential benefits or silver linings in this is going to force brands to optimize their supply chain, look for better, more stable, more affordable ways to enhance their supply chain. Every point or a couple of points you can save on your supply chain makes a huge difference. As you can make your supply chain more stable, more reliable, that makes a huge difference. You increase your quality of product, that makes a huge difference. And so it's a time to look at your supply chain. And you've been doing this a long time, Jim.
Oh, absolutely.
When did you first start looking outside of China? And was it because you kind of were predicting something like this could happen, or was there something else that was driving that?
So I moved to Vietnam and started sourcing from Vietnam in 2014. And yeah, at the time, everybody was sourced from China. I just felt like, saturated. There were plenty of people doing it. And then I visited Vietnam, fell in love with the country. And yeah, 2014 at the time, I was trying to get ahead of the Trans-Pacific Partnership, which was at the time the largest free trade agreement in history. It ended up not getting ratified and passed, but I still had a lot of people reach out to me about finding manufacturers in Vietnam. And at that time, 10 years ago, 2014, it was much less developed manufacturing wise than it is today. I mean, we were doing like industrial wooden goods and some really kind of basic cheap stuff, to be honest, at that time. But yeah, I mean, there's still a demand for it. And yeah, definitely kind of saw Vietnam as being the future early, and kind of got lucky in that sense. But yeah,
Love it.
like,
Yeah,
really,
yeah. Love it. You were ahead of the time, and man, it has really paid off for you, especially now.
for sure.
And so there's a few things I want to talk about. I want to talk about de minimis with you. I want to talk about tariff engineering. I want to talk bonded warehouses. I want to talk about what not to do, because you really were dropping some bombs of knowledge in the talk in Fort Lauderdale that a lot of people were like, wait a minute, I can't do that? Are you sure I can't do that? And you're like, yeah,
I
sure.
found out some people were doing it. I'm not going to name names, but
yeah,
I had awkward conversations with some people. I'm like,
yeah, they're like, wait a minute.
Be careful.
So there's several things to talk about there. So that's it. So stay tuned for that. But I want to talk a little bit about why Vietnam? Like, why did you go there? But more importantly, why should we consider Vietnam right now? Because as I've learned from you, and actually one of our top clients imports from Vietnam, their product is phenomenal.
yeah.
Why should we consider Vietnam? And I know there are other places to consider as well, but you've got a special place in your heart for Vietnam.
Yeah, I mean, for Vietnam, I mean, you have to pick what they specialize in. But what they do specialize in, they do an excellent job. And two biggest categories we do are anything textile, cut, and sew based. That ranges from clothing, apparel, to bags, luggage, tool belts. Our mutual client that we work with. Yeah, and then also we do a lot of wooden good and furniture, and they're definitely growing in several other industries. We're starting to do more electronics, OEM electronics, but it's definitely, I don't want to say hit and miss, but it's growing. It's probably their fastest growing industry. But when we're doing a lot more plastic injection molding, silicone parts, we've been doing like a lot of industrial metal projects, stamped metal goods, starting to do some car parts too. And all those industries I think are definitely growing, more developed industry. But you really got to figure out what Vietnam can do and then target in on those products.
That's great. And so, I think it's always important to understand, like, hey, what are maybe the misconceptions about a country, or where are the stereotypes true or not true? So any misconceptions out there about Vietnam right now, or any things you like to set the record straight on?
Yeah, for sure. I think a lot of people do private label manufacturing in China, which is fine. Just find a factory that makes a pre-existing product, slap your logo on it, and sell it, which everybody's been doing for years. But Vietnam, and honestly anywhere outside of China, just does not do that. So the overall, majority of what projects we do is going to be contract manufacturing, where you supply the factory with your product spec sheets and tech packs, and they'll make it to your specs, but they're not going to have like existing designs on hand.
Got it.
That's probably the biggest one. Other one too, Alibaba and like those alternatives just aren't good or don't really exist there. So when you find factories, you can't just put an RFQ on a website, have a dozen factories come to you. You have to do your own research, really follow up with them, and chase them down. I know a lot of people get turned off by that because they expect factories to be tripping over to find or work with clients, but it's not the case. And there are also higher MOQs. I know a lot of people say low MOQs, and there are kind of boutique handmade like dress factories and whatnot to do small one-off MOQs, but for the most part, I would say MOQs tend to be higher in Vietnam and outside of China as well.
Interesting. So higher MOQs, a little more legwork up front. You're going to have to supply the specs. It's contract manufacturing, that sort of thing. But then what are some of the benefits? Because I know in talking to our mutual client who manufactures in Vietnam, they actually moved from the U.S. to Vietnam a few years ago, and they said their quality went up. Like they cut their COGS by 70%. Quality went up, that sort of thing. But what speak to us about like how does it compare manufacturing in Vietnam for the things they're good at to kind of the rest of the world?
Yeah, I think for what they're good at, I think they excel. Because the tool belt, I'm not going to name who, but the tool belt is pretty high end, and they have a pretty good the quality they have in place is pretty good. So and then just overall, I think the quality is quite good for a lot of what they excel in. Like we do a lot of furniture too, and we can do like some very high end like custom hardwood pieces that I mean, they go for thousands for a single piece and go in literally multi-million-dollar homes. We're doing some
Interesting.
projects in Palm Beach, Florida right now, and then another custom home builder out of Palm Beach. So they're doing literally $10 million plus
They're doing all
houses.
that in Vietnam. Yeah.
They're doing a lot of
Yeah.
it, not all of it. Yeah.
So MOQs are a little
Yeah.
higher, but like prices, and I know it's hard to compare prices because you're talking about depends on the category, depends on the good, depends on all so many things. But pricing, general comments on pricing, how does it compare?
Yeah, pricing for like apparel and textiles tends to be cheaper in Vietnam than China outright. And same with wooden goods, because Vietnam is a tropical country. There's lots of access to high quality tropical hardwoods. And with ASEAN, the Association of Southeast Asian Nations, which is all the Southeast Asian nations have free trade, so it's pretty easy to move wood from one country to another. So the quality of wood you get in Vietnam is excellent. So for that, it's definitely one of the big things they excel on. And yeah, pricing for textiles, bags, backpacks, even shoes, we consistently find to be about the same price and oftentimes cheaper than China. And the price to quality ratio, like you're buying a $5 sweatshirt from Vietnam versus $5 in China, the quality is going to be higher. China does have a lot of like very cheap, low quality. So people are like, I can get, like we were talking to clients getting t-shirts for like 83 cents in China, and ours were coming in about 130, but the 130 shirts were decent. Versus very low quality t-shirts that 83 cents. And that was as cheap as we could find, but it's definitely at the price to quality ratio.
So the cost to quality ratio is really good there, which that goes a long way. So lots of opportunities in Vietnam, and we'll continue to talk about that as we go and kind of as we go through our other topics, we weave that back in. But what other countries should people think about? Because I know you specialize in anything outside of China. So what other countries should we consider, and for what?
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, we've been in Vietnam for 10 years, and we've been expanding and since last year to all of Southeast Asia, Mexico, and looking to expand even more this year. I mean, Southeast Asia is great. Indonesia has a lot of great factories. Thailand, we're doing like a lot of higher end auto parts and appliances in Thailand. Some rubber goods, some natural rubber, so pretty eco-friendly stuff. Malaysia does appliances and like some really good metal furniture. And Mexico too. A lot of interest in Mexico, but I will say Mexico is a little difficult to source from because they're very limited in what they can produce, much more limited than people expect. More people want Mexico work than it's suitable for.
What are those limitations and why for Mexico?
Yeah, so we're doing a lot of like stamped metal and industrial goods, some aftermarket car parts, some workwear, denim. So we can do stuff like that, but we get a lot of requests for like scrubs, which we do a lot of scrubs in Vietnam, and the quality is great. But then people specifically want Mexico just for the ease of shipment, but it's just not a good quality scrub suppliers there. And there's definitely a few other products that people really want to get from from Mexico. I really think Mexico is going to get more and more investment over the coming years. Just because the demand is absolutely there. It's just the supply has not caught up. And I will say a lot of new factories are getting China or have Chinese-backed investment to Mexico, but it's still a portion of it.
Makes sense, right? China's going to diversify themselves because they want to avoid the tariffs and still profit from what they're really great at, which is manufacturing.
Yeah.
So makes a lot of sense. One of the things that I know has caused some confusion, you talked about this during your talk at Seller Summit, is country of origin, right? Because I think there's going to be some creative things that people are going to try to do.
Oh, for sure.
To skirt around country of origin and stuff like that. But can you talk about that? What constitutes country of origin, and what do we need to know there?
Yeah, I mean, what's really kind of annoying is it's very broadly written in the law. Basically, the law states that a new article of commerce has to emerge in the country. So if you import raw fabrics from China, have them made in a t-shirt, that's a new article of commerce. And you actually do cut sew, the fabric making, everything in Vietnam. It's a new article of commerce because the t-shirt is fundamentally different from fabric.
Yep.
But yeah, I mean, broadly speaking, you have to have substantial change. And I try to advise people at least 50% of value. But as long as it emerges as a new article of commerce is new, but you can't simply put a new label on something. Like if you get a mug, you can't just put your logo on it and ship it from Vietnam, from China, or just add logos or change colors. Or,
it was a mug. It is a mug. You added a logo.
Yeah, exactly.
That is not.
The same thing with like shoes. And people are like, I've gotten requests where people do repackaging multiple times, and I either turn them down or ignore them. But yeah, they think you can just have the product shipped from China, find a package supplier in Vietnam, package it in Vietnam, and then ship it to US is a new product, but it's not, because the product is still fundamentally the same thing. So yeah, I mean, you have to have substantial transformation of the product, and like generally and like if you get audited, you have to document it. So I mean, if you have a factory in Vietnam, you just simply have the factory write a certified letter, like, yeah, we made it. Here's the invoice. Here's the letter. Here's the factory. You can maybe even take videos of your product being made in Vietnam. Some nice Vietnamese workers saying, "Yep, look, I'm making this." But yeah, just document it, and it'll go through fine. But if you're just like we said, doing the repackaging or pass through transshipment, it's definitely something to get caught. And they're definitely with CBP, Customs and Border Protection, who enforces customs. They're doing 50% more audits now, just last month.
Wow. Wow.
More in April, 50% more in April than they were. I don't know what the time frame. I guess probably during the Biden administration. And they're planning on increasing that more and more. And they're like Planeteer and whatnot have contracts with CBP now. And countries like Vietnam and most other countries share import data. So what's getting imported into Vietnam is getting shared with CBP. So they know what's getting shipped in, and then they can hypothetically use AI or whatever to match it. So it's definitely, yeah, don't do transshipment. Just actually make the product in the country, because it's going to get more robust. The fines are pretty steep, and once you get called once, once you get called once, you're pretty much red flagged for the rest of forever. And they can look back on previous shipments too. So it's not like they get caught one time; they're going to look back at your previous shipments. So
it's just one of those things where, and I think one of the analogies you use is like, hey, we would never cheat on our taxes, right? Or not file our tax or something like that. Like, we know, dude, you don't mess. I mean, yes, I'm going to take every advantage, every deduction that I can take, but I'm not going to screw around with the IRS, right?
Oh, absolutely.
And the CBP is the same, maybe going to get more intense, and it's going to be such a huge revenue generator for the U.S. government, tariffs, that they're not going to be messing around here. And so it makes sense to do it by the book. Yes, look for advantages, but do it by the book.
Yeah, absolutely, do it by the book. So make sure everything's compliant. You've got paperwork and documentation support everything you made. Yeah, I mean, look at payments potentially to the factory. I mean, they have as much capability, more or less, than as the IRS to look at your finances, and why not? And yeah, I mean, Trump wants to have the External Revenue Service, which is, I mean, as far as I'm
concerned, CBP, right? I mean, they're going to be connected. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah. So yeah, if you don't cheat on your taxes, don't cheat on shipments. Don't cheat on your taxes, period.
Love that comparison. I think that sets the right frame for folks. Let's talk about de minimis. This is something that's talked about a lot. It's come up a lot. But explain that for folks that are still maybe a little bit fuzzy. How is that impacted, and what should we know about that?
Yeah, so de minimis was a rule in place that basically shipments under $800 in value would not have a tariff or duty rates applied to it. Just at that point, they were like $800. The tax and duty you collect is going to be less than what the actual cost, administrative cost to get in and figure stuff out was. That rule's gone away for China and Hong Kong, but it's still in effect for the rest of the world. And I do want to give the big caveat: is definitely something the White House and the people in charge have talked about getting rid of some point in the future. But as of today, May 18th, probably about 10 a.m., a few hours ago, I haven't checked news in a few hours, it's still in effect.
So any shipment any single shipment under $800, no customs or no tariffs there, does not apply to China or Hong Kong, but for right now.
But yeah, you can ship from Vietnam and get under that $800 value, and that's each individual shipment. So you have to do, I don't know, it's a lot of people there are companies like Portless and whatnot that does warehousing in Vietnam. You can ship to a warehouse in Vietnam. Each time a customer places an order in the United States, they ship each item out to the customer. And it skirts around, as of now, the minimis law, assuming your product's lightweight. But I mean, there is like cost, because when you ship each individual item versus a container, you want to have small lightweight stuff like t-shirts and small electronic items, because once you get large heavyweight items, like let's just say flat pack furniture, the shipping cost per item to do air shipping is going to get prohibitively expensive.
You want to save on shipping costs. It's worth the 10% tariff or whatever, because you're saving more on shipping. So you got to kind of balance that out. Great. Well, speaking of warehouses, I know something you've talked about, and I've heard a few people talk about, is bonded warehouses. And so explain that, and then when should we consider that versus when is that maybe not advantageous to us?
Yeah, for sure. So customs bonded warehouses are warehouses that are more or less connected to the port. So what you can do is you can ship a product to the port, and then from the port it'll get shipped to the customs bonded warehouse directly. And then when it leaves the warehouse, so each shipment, that's when it gets the tariff rate applied to it. So yeah, the sample I used, so that way, like if you have a 100,000 container with $100,000 worth of goods, I guess new tariff rate is 30%. Typically goes to port, leaves the port through customs. You pay 30,000 on tariffs on that shipment at one time before the product sells. But you can ship that shipment straight to a custom bond warehouse, and then each time a customer places an order on a product, you get revenue from the customer, and then it leaves the warehouse. So let's just say it's $100 items. You pay $30 in tariffs each time the product leaves the warehouse, and you get the cash flow in from your customer. So there's not like that one big hit. Yeah. You're going to still pay tariffs, but it splits it up so you pay the tariffs as you get cash flow coming in from the clients or your customers.
Yeah, and it makes a lot of sense. And I know, especially when tariffs were 154% from China there for a hot minute, people were like, "Whoa, bonded warehouse! I'm only going to pay that on a per item basis as much as I can." Now it's 30%. Maybe people are a little more flexible, but it's still nice to have that flexibility of it's there. Now you can absorb the hit because you got cash flow coming in from the customer. So a lot of benefits there.
And yeah, if you shipped it like in April, like late April, early May, when it's still 145%, you shipped it customs on the warehouse. You can ship it out now, pay the 30% tariffs instead of paying what would have been 145%. And I know a lot of people are trying, 30% is manageable for a lot of people, so they just want to get it out and pay what they need to at the time.
Still painful, but manageable, especially in comparison. But so those the customs bonded warehouses are close to a port. I know there's some extra costs associated there too. So what do we need to consider? Like, when would we not want to do this?
I mean, for the most part, just kind of look at your cash flow and how you want it managed. Like, yeah, customs bonded warehouse, they're definitely in demand right now, so they're going to be more expensive on a per square footage rate than a typical warehouse. But I mean, if you're looking at the tariff rates, and it's more cost advantageous, or you just want to preserve your cash flow for the time being, it's definitely going to be advantageous to do. And I know a lot of people are probably shipping out of customs bonded warehouses, like I mentioned earlier, just moving a traditional one and just pay the tariff now. But it gives you that flexibility to kind of adjust as the tariff rates changes. Because right now, every day is a new announcement. Like
every day is a new adventure for sure.
He's going to have new tariffs on scores
check
of
the tariff news.
Really
What's going on? Totally makes sense. So then let's look at tariff engineering. Tariffs, I believe, are here to stay, at least for this administration and likely beyond. Just like anything with the government, though, once Democrats say they don't like tariffs, but then once they're in place, if people are okay with it, it's hard to turn away revenue, right? And that's true for either party. So likely tariffs hearsay.
Yeah, like Biden kept the 25% on China through his administration.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's like, we're pretty well. Nobody's talking about that. Let's just keep it. Yeah. So let's talk tariff engineering. How do you coach people, or how do you work with your clients to engineer tariffs for the least?
Yeah, it gets a little tricky because you really have to really dive in deep on what your product is, the HTS code, and then look at similar HTS codes.
And what is the HTS code?
Yeah, HTS code. So HTS code, for those who aren't familiar, Harmonized Tariff Schedule is the code that is assigned to pretty much 17,000 different product categories. And that's going to be what the tariff rate is determined by. So there's going to be a list. So each product falls under a different HTS code. They're 10 digits. But yeah, what you do is you look at your HTS code and then look at similar ones. And then if you have like a similar HTS code nearby that you can make changes to that have a lower tariff rate, you can fundamentally change your product to get in. Like the example I used was Columbia Sportswear. Like for all their shirts, they all started adding a little pocket on the inside of their shirts, like credit card size pocket, I think. And the difference is the shirt has a higher tariff rate than a windbreaker. And so since it has a pocket, they can actually classify the shirts as a windbreaker.
That meets the requirement for windbreaker, change the HTS code, lower tariff now.
Exactly. And they engineer the product to meet the requirements for a windbreaker. And I'm sure everybody has a shirt, it's nice to have a little pocket. So
nice little benefit as well.
Yeah. So they figure that out, and they pay a lower tariff rate on their shirt shipments because of that change. And Converse did that. They put a felt liner in their Converse All-Stars because it's slippers instead of shoes or sneakers, and slippers have a lower tariff rate than sneakers. That's probably one of the most famous examples. But a lot of people are kind of just exploring similar products that can effectively sold the same, just to get a different HTS code. But this is a little tricky to do because not every product, because most of the time most products in the same category get taxed at the same rate, more or less.
Yeah.
So even if you do change,
So not always a lot of opportunities here.
Yeah.
And is this kind of like going back to our IRS example? This is sort of like using deductions, right? And so then it's like, do you fall under scrutiny here if you're getting too cute or too creative, or is this
you
relatively
definitely would,
straightforward?
because when you submit it through CBP, you're going to say, hey, it's this HTS code, and there's going to be some guy, literally somebody looking at their database, checking it, the product, the materials and whatnot. And if they say it's something different, they're like, hey, we actually think it's this HTS code. And then there's going to be back and forth. And then ultimately there's an arbitration court, I don't know the exact term, but I know there's basically arbitrator where more or less a judge rules on what the ultimate HTS code is. Because we were looking at we didn't do the ruling, but we looked at a ruling because we were doing baby carriers for a client. And he was trying to figure out which HTS code. And there was like a not court ruling, but customs ruling, like from 2013 that said it's this HTS code, which is surprisingly catch-all HTS code, because it was all fabric baby carriers. Versus, of course, most baby carriers tend to have some sort of structure in it. Those structured baby carriers are actually taxed at a different rate, or classified as different than all fabric. Yeah. So you got to kind of figure that out, and but ultimately though, it's going to be what the custom says the product is. And again, if you get cute, it's not as bad as fines as just straight up lying to them, but they're going to say it's this HTS code. There's going to be some.
So you got to pay the difference.
Yeah, you got to pay the difference.
And they correct it. Yeah.
If it gets held up, there's some demurrage, some storage charges too, related to that. Sure. But
and ultimately, look, we got to design our product for our customer, and it's got to meet our vision and mission and what we're trying to accomplish with the product. But it's just another one of those things where it's like, hey, let me take a look, because maybe this is easy, or maybe we have the wrong HTS code and we need to switch it, and it's going to work better for us. It's something to take a look at because it could have a meaningful impact.
Yeah, a lot of small things too, like synthetic fabrics and natural fabrics are sometimes taxed differently. So you can look at just changing the fabric of your product, for instance. But just
maybe you really can change it and get better performance, and now you get a lower tariff rate. So yeah. Interesting. So let's talk about what not to do. And I know there are several caveats here. This is not legal advice. You're not an attorney. I'm not an attorney. But what are some things that we need to avoid right now, or at least need to be very, very cautious of?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I think the first thing I mentioned was DDP. And if I were to redo that talk, I would say there's a right way to do DDP and a wrong way to do DDP.
Yeah, and what is DDP?
Delivery duty paid. So DDP is an Incoterm, which means you work with a manufacturer. They'll give you an invoice, and the manufacturer will be in charge of making the product, shipping the product, paying the duties and deliveries, everything for you up until it reaches your the ultimate final destination. And it's legal. It's been a thing for a while. So the right way to so in this case, you just basically pay the manufacturer one, and they handle everything. There's a right way, and like I said, there's a right way and a wrong way. The right way is trust but verify your supplier. Make sure you get copies of all the manufacturer's invoice, the shipping, who's shipping, what HTS, what they're classifying is. Because what's happening a lot of times, not all the time, but a lot of times, is the manufacturers know that, they have the lowest price. They're going to go with them. So they're figuring out ways to falsify manufacturing invoice so that because that's what they use to the bill of lading or whatnot, is what they use to calculate the tariffs on. So when you pay 145,000 or 30%, 145, I don't know whatever it is today, 30% on 10,000, it's going to pay 3,000. But if they falsify it and say 5,000 and you pay 30%, it's half the tariff cost.
Right. Yeah.
And so a lot of manufacturers doing that, because what's happened is ultimately the person that is legally liable for it is the importer, the person buying the product. So if you verify that everything they say is accurate, the manufacturer's invoice is accurate, the shipping bill of lading is correctly listed, the HTS code is correct, it's fine. So no issue there, but they don't always supply that information to you. So a lot of people just turn this blind eye, just accept what everything the manufacturer is saying is correct. And, they have a lot of times that they have suspicious low bids. That's what they're probably doing.
Yeah.
But
so trust but verify. But I think that's the piece a lot of people don't know. Is they're like, oh, no, it's my factory's doing it, right? So they're the ones that are liable. But
the agent of record is the import or the manufacturer. And they assume, since they're agent of record, they're the one legally liable and responsible. If anybody gets called, it's going to be them, but it's not the case. And I got a lot of pushback from it. I'm not going to name names, but yeah, there were people doing this, and I had to explain how to do it correctly and how not to. And I was like, okay, probably gave a few people a heart attack, so I want to apologize to those people.
Yeah, and I mean, again, it's sort of like one of those things where it's like, oh, well, my accountant screwed up my tax return. Not my fault. I don't have to pay those taxes. Well, no, you still do. Like, they're your taxes.
Oh, absolutely.
And so you got to look at it that way.
Yeah, you got to absolutely.
So basically, you just got to look at, hey, what I'm paying per unit or total to the manufacturer, is that what they're putting on the invoice, and is that what the tariff is being charged to? And if all that looks good, then you're fine.
Yeah, just trust them. Great. Just verify everything, because if it gets called up, it's held, it gets red flagged by customs, they're going to ask for documentation, ask you more or less, and if you don't have that, you're just, I don't know. I just thought they would do a good job. It's not going to fly. They expect.
Yeah, and I think you mentioned this too. Like, then once something is flagged for you, probably future orders, they're going to be paying attention, right? You're going to be scrutinized from there.
And again, they can look back on past shipments too. And if they find you were doing that on past shipments, then you can also get paid fines for past shipments. So just know how to do it correctly. Yeah, work with customs brokers, make sure everything goes through smoothly. Yeah, just for me, I always recommend FOB, have your own freight forwarder. Yeah, and then they'll have a customs broker, and they'll handle everything and tell you what to do and give you advice before the shipment and all that. But yeah,
what is FOB?
Free on board. So it means the manufacturer is responsible for having the product shipped to the port in the country of origin. So, and then the freight forwarder will pick it up at the port.
Got it. Okay, well, let's talk about, you specialize in helping people diversify their supply chain or re-engineer their supply chain, and you're looking at outside of China. Who should reach out to you? I know everybody's kind of scrambling and looking just because of the chaos lately, but who should reach out to you, and what are some of the things they should be considering as they're looking at diversifying their supply chain? Are you mostly helping people fully shift their manufacturing to other countries? Are you looking at, hey, let's diversify, let's have these things made here and these things made here? Walk me through that.
Yeah, I mean, the majority of our clients tend to shift. Majority of clients tend to have a couple key products, but they're shifting for the most part all their manufacturing to Vietnam. But we work with a lot of clients who have dozens of different product categories, and we're just, for those clients, we're going through their list saying, hey, these 3-4 categories we can definitely do in Vietnam. These 2 are maybe, and these probably can't do in Vietnam. And then we're shifting some of the supply chain. A lot of our bigger clients, like our 8-figure plus clients, they have the means to be more diversified, so they're keeping their suppliers in China for the time being, and then placing new orders with factories in Vietnam just for the time being. But I mean, for the most part, we're just ultimately shifting a lot of clients down to Vietnam completely. And so a lot of people have their supply chains, but they've been buying from China, so they'll keep them for future orders potentially if things change. But for the most part, I think a lot of people are moving permanently to Vietnam. Or permanently away from China.
What does the process look like? So I've now decided I'm going to start shifting my manufacturing some or all from China to Vietnam or one of the other countries you work with. What is that process like? How much time are we talking here? Or is this a 6-month plan, an 18-month plan? Is it what does that look like?
Yeah, it's definitely a ballpark 6 months to actually get your first order in hand. Because once you kind of reach out to us, we'll let you know if the product can be made in Vietnam or not. But once we kind of get that point, our team will go out, research suppliers, verify and vet them. Like we've probably placed orders with a few hundred factories already in Vietnam. So we have pretty good working relationship and pretty good idea what they can and can't do. But once we get that, we'll get quotes for our clients, do direct introductions to the clients and the manufacturers. So everything we do is transparent in that way. And then, once they do that, obviously there's samples to be made. Make sure they can make the product exactly, and then purchase order. So you're looking at about 4 weeks to actually get the quotes, verify, vet the suppliers, make sure everything's in line with your expectations. A couple of weeks per each round of samples, and then purchase order. Once you place a purchase order, lead times tends to be about 30-45 days for most products.
Got it.
Then shipping. And so realistically, you're looking at actually having the product in hand from Vietnam in about 5 to 7 months once you actually start a project.
Got it. That actually does not sound too bad. I mean, that's still... it still seems very reasonable. Very cool. So what are you hearing? I'm just curious if you have a perspective. How's the U.S. going to play a part here? Manufacturing in the U.S. Is this going to, are you seeing that there's going to be a lot more investment in U.S. manufacturing? Do you think that's something you guys will eventually help with?
Yeah.
Is that just out of reach for a lot of things? Or
Yeah, I mean, our ultimate goal is we want to find the best suppliers for our clients, no matter where they are.
Yeah.
And you
Yeah.
got to have expertise in each country of origin. But I'm American, so obviously I want to find some great suppliers in America. So actually, if any American manufacturers are listening to this, please feel free to reach out to me. I want to
reach out to Jim, man. He's connecting people. So
yeah, I know.
So
yeah, I mean, we
looked
talked to a cabinet and woodworker manufacturer literally last night, and I really have a couple projects that I'm willing to recommend to him and get quotes as well. So I think it is going to be a good time to look at American manufacturers, but it's still very limited because what most people need is contract manufacturers, ones you can reach out to with a tech pack and RFQ and then actually quote and make it. While most manufacturers in the United States tend to work for brands, like there's auto part manufacturing, plastic injection molding, but they're set up by a client to make it for those specific things. So there's not as much, even though there's a lot of manufacturers, not as much contract manufacturing in place.
Right, they're manufacturing for a specific. It's manufacturing spun up by a specific brand to meet their needs, type of thing. Yeah, it makes sense.
And I mean, people are setting up too. Like I know of a laundry sheets manufacturer. They are buying from all over. They just weren't happy with the quality. Started looking into what it would take to actually build a manufacturer for laundry sheets, and they did it themselves in house. I know they sell eco-friendly laundry sheets made out of North Carolina. So yeah, people are doing that.
Is that True Earth? You may not be able to say who the company is, but we used to work with True Earth, which was fun. But yeah.
Oh man. Yeah. I actually need to look up the name. It might be.
No worries. But yeah, this is one of those things. And I know we were talking about Simple Modern. I was talking about that on another podcast. I know the one of the founders there, and they're manufacturing some of their stuff now in Oklahoma, where they're based. They still get most of their products from China, but they're manufacturing a lot in Oklahoma now. Yeah. There's some benefits, right, to speed and cash flow and MOQs if you're manufacturing here and things like that. So, unit costs can be higher in the U.S., but maybe it's more cash flow beneficial to you to manufacture here.
Yeah, so, with manufacturing, everything's getting more and more automated too. So a lot of stuff like flexion injection molding is more or less just get a mold and machinery and one guy who knows how to program it.
Yeah, pressing buttons at that point, right?
I know.
So, yeah, totally makes sense. Well, Jim, this has been fantastic. This is one of those things where I'm glad now that people are getting serious about their supply chain. I think anytime you can find margin in your cost of goods, that opens up opportunity for you to grow and to spend more in marketing or just to profit more. And so painful time, but I think the best operators are going to come out ahead during this. And so, Jim, for those that are looking at moving outside of China, how can they contact you and Cosmo Sourcing?
Yeah, so you can send to my direct email, which is jim@cosmosourcing.com. You can get the spelling back there. It's standard. And our website is cosmosourcing.com. Or just Google Cosmo Sourcing. We come up first. Yeah.
Awesome. I'll link to everything in the show notes as well. But if you got questions, Jim's a really smart guy, good guy, knows what he's doing. He's worked with some of my clients. People that I know trust him, and so do I. And so reach out to Jim if you have questions. With that, Jim, good luck to you. Congrats on your amazing timing and predicting the future, that one day there'll be massive tariffs on China. Everyone will want to be moving out. So
absolutely.
Kudos to you on that, and keep doing good work.
Great. Thank you. It's a pleasure being here.
Awesome. And thank you for tuning in. As always, we'd love to hear from you. What would you like to hear more of on the podcast? If you have not done so, we'd love that review on iTunes, or share this podcast with someone that you think would enjoy it or benefit from it. Somebody that's thinking about, what do I do with my supply chain or my manufacturing? Share with them this episode. And with that, until next time, thank you for listening.